Welcome to the Empowered Women's Project, a podcast and community made by women for women to help you live your best life and reconnect you back to the things that really matter. Today, we are talking about a hot topic that's definitely coming up a lot at the moment around 5G, Wi-Fi, dirty electricity, and the exposure that we have on a consistent daily basis to things that are not necessarily helping us with our health and vitality. So it's something that I've become really passionate about for myself and my family, even right back when I was writing my book and doing research around dirty electricity and exposure for children. It's something that has become prevalent more and more. And right now, the children of today are the first generation that are growing up amongst, this exposure every single day. So there's a lot to be aware of when it comes to having a healthy and safe home and environment for you and your family. So let's jump in. Hey guys, I am really excited to be jumping in today and talking with you around staying wired for health. So right now we're living in a world where technology is just continuously advancing, which is really amazing. I get it. There's lots of benefits. Technology is making our life so much easier than maybe it was 20 or 30 years ago. However, the things that are also happening with this advancement is a lot of it is unfounded and untested when it comes to our health and well-being. I remember, I don't know if you can remember when you got a microwave in your home. I remember when my mum and dad brought it in and we stood outside the kitchen and we just watched it go round and round and round. And it was like, oh my gosh, I remember watching, the Glad wrap over the top of, or the cling wrap, depending on where you live in the world, over the top of the potatoes that were getting their little hearts cooked out in there, and it just bubbling away. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Fast forward 30 plus years, and we're starting to learn about the health effects of microwaves, the ability for them to really seep out a lot of beautiful nutrition that's actually in our food, the high frequency waves that are put through the food that heat it at a really high temperature. And so, I actually haven't had a microwave in my home for over 20 years. And even when we had little kids and it was easy, obviously, to warm up their food or a bottle or something like that, we just did it all over the stove, and it wasn't necessarily convenient, but I knew that with everything that I'd learned, it just didn't make sense to be zapping our food. Was it easy? Was it convenient? Yep. But it just didn't make sense to reheat things as well. We're like, no, we just got rid of it. So that was over 20 years ago. And I know for a lot of homes, it's still part of the furniture, which I understand. But there's more and more technology that's advancing right now. And I know 5G is a big topic of conversation that's happening at the moment, and it's definitely concerning. Yeah, cool, we can have faster internet and that's all great. However, there's also the health implications that we just don't even know what can happen because we don't have time to actually show for it. And so what's really interesting right now is the current generation, or I guess my children, so my eldest son is 12. They're the first generation to be growing up in a world where they've been amongst Wi-Fi kind of since day dot. We don't know the implications of that long term. There's definitely a lot of speculation out there that it isn't good. And what I want to talk with you today is around dirty electricity and electromagnetic frequency, or EMF. When I was writing my book, Raising Healthy Families in Unhealthy Times, I started to do research around dirty electricity. And what is that? You might not have heard of it. It's really where, we have exposure to electricity unknowingly that can be affecting our health and well-being. So I remember when I was doing the research, I was reading different books where families had moved into homes or children were sleeping in certain bedrooms. And on the other side of the wall was the power box that supplied the power to their home. Or it might have been the refrigerator, or it might have been a neighbor's adjoining wall, and there was a lot of electrical items plugged in on the other side. And, a day here and there is no big deal, but when you're exposing your body and your cells on a consistent daily basis, particularly in a place of rest, that has health implications. And so there were so many different stories. If you go Google dirty electricity, there's some great books out there around it. But it was so interesting to me, and I started to learn more and more about it. And it was interesting when our kids were younger, we didn't have baby monitors. And I know there was, a lot of talk around being really concerned around SIDS and, and wanting to have monitors on our kids so that we could make sure that they were breathing and everything okay. And I know there's even mats that babies could be placed on, like to sleep on top of, which would monitor and measure their heart rates and their breathing rates. Now, I'm sure in certain health situations, those things are important and necessary, but on an ongoing basis, you want to think about if you're laying over an electrical field that has an effect on our cells. We're electrical beings. The only way that our brain communicates to the rest of the body is via electrical impulses. And so when we're exposing ourselves, the same goes for sleeping on an electric blanket, for example. If you live in a cold area and you have an electric blanket, it's one thing to use it, plug it in, and turn it on to warm up your bed. But it's another thing to stay sleeping on it while it's plugged in and turned on. That's constantly giving that body, your body, that exposure, which is not a good thing. So I just want to start to open up the conversation and the topic with you. I've got some amazing guests that I'm going to be bringing on in future episodes to really dive deep into this. But if you just kind of, you might hear me talk about putting our common sense hat on. Think about this for a second. When we look now at the way technology is going, Wi-Fi obviously is amazing. You could probably pick up your phone right now, and there's probably several different modems that are showing up available for you to tap into with your phone. And so those things are tracking through your body on a consistent basis. And, there's definitely been a lot of experts out there talking about the health implications around constant exposure. And with 5G as a real topic at the moment, one of the biggest concerns is, well, if there's a 5G tower going up in my area, I'm going to be exposed on a regular basis. I've been able to connect with an amazing lady who's a building biologist, and a building biologist goes into your home and looks at the ecology of your home, what's happening electrically, chemically, that could be causing health challenges to you. She talks about our home as being like our third skin, and that we often don't look at our environment to go, oh, well, I've got these health challenges. I've started feeling not great lately. We've moved home, or maybe you've made some changes to the house. Maybe it could be through paint. It could be electrically. And we often don't correlate the connection. And so we're going to have Nicole on a future podcast. But one of the things that we started to learn as we were talking with her and reading her book as well is, in my home, our modem is on the second level. And so it was right at my feet. And for the last 6 years, it did not feel good. It did not make sense, but it was just kind of how everything was wired. And for the last 6 years, the modem has been right at my feet. And for us to watch a movie in the TV room, say on Netflix or whatever, I often think about, from the modem, if I want to watch a movie, there is an amazing high definition, amazing sound movie that's traveling through the air from my modem, kind of through some kids' bedrooms, down into the kitchen, through the kitchen, and then into where we've got our TV for us to be able to watch it. So that's constantly sending and receiving data for us to be able to watch a movie. Amazing technology. Like, how incredible is that? However, have you ever thought about, well, if you're sitting at the kitchen bench, or if you're sitting in between, from where the modem's going to the TV, as an example, what is happening to your body? Like, is it a good thing that all of that is actually moving through you? And, the more I've learned about it, I can tell you right now, the answer is no. So we actually decided to have a building biologist come into our home and do an assessment. And I was pretty certain, with everything that I was starting to learn, what would be some of the key areas that we would need to change. And the big thing was around Wi-Fi. So one of the things she explained, and, just a lot of us carry a mobile phone on our body all the time. And if you actually go into the settings, if you actually go looking, it says, do not carry this device on a person. And so it's never been tried or tested to actually see, well, what are the long-term health implications of having a mobile phone that's constantly sending and receiving on a person's body? And, I think it's really important that we start to look at, well, what are some of our habits that we're starting to do? And also that our children, if you have kids, are starting to do, that could actually be affecting us from a health perspective. So today in this podcast, I just want you to get thinking. I want you to start looking at what you're doing at the moment. Are you kind of cooking your food in the microwave and possibly killing all of that beautiful nutrition? And could you start to make an upgrade and steam it, on the stove or stir fry or something like that? Where is your modem in your home right now? Is it near one of the bedrooms? Is it on all the time? Do you have the ability to turn it off? So I'm going to give you some great tips and things you can start to do. And then, as I mentioned in a future episode, we're really going to dive into more of the research behind this as well, which I've just found absolutely fascinating. So one of the things that we decided to do, we had the building biologist come out. She bought this awesome kit where she uses that to measure the different things when it comes to dirty electricity and EMF. And it was amazing looking at, first of all, is there anything happening from the outside? So are our neighbors, do they have anything plugged in that's possibly exposing or coming into our home that we don't want? And that was a no, which was great. And then secondly, what's happening within the home, what's turned on, what is actually affecting us. And so right where my office is, my children's bedroom is right next door. And we, for some years now, we've been turning the modem off at night because we know that, well, we don't want Wi-Fi while we're sleeping, to be affecting our body. Now we've gone to the next level, particularly after having Kelly come out and do this assessment and actually wire our entire home. So, you might be living in a rental right now and go, well, that's really easy for you, but I don't own my home, so I can't do that. That's fine. Remember those blue Ethernet cords, those things that we plug into the network? You can totally get that. I think you can go to Bunnings or something like that and buy a 20-meter cord. If that's an interim option for you, when the internet is actually going through the Ethernet port, it's not exposing everyone or everything in the house. It's just traveling through that cord, which is great. So that's one thing. You have the ability often on your modem as well, either logging into your modem, you can check with your service provider, or even you might find there's a button on your modem that you can turn the Wi-Fi off so that it's not even happening within your home. The next thing is, kids and mobile phones. Like some of my boys, their mates, they've got their own phones and they're sleeping with them under their pillow. The one thing that I do, and, the one thing that the building biologist was sharing with us is these things are so, we're worried about 5G and are our neighbors exposing us to things or whatever. These phones, this is the thing that we want to keep away from us. So you might go, yeah, well, that's great as well. I run my business from my phone. So do I get it. So what I've started to do is anytime I take a phone call, I am putting my phone on speaker and putting it at a distance away from my body. Or I'm going old school and I'm using good old headphones, the wired headphones, and I'll touch on Bluetooth in a second, the wired headphones to be able to have my call. So that's the first thing that we've started doing, and just being really mindful. And I don't know if you've ever been on a phone call for a period of time and you just start feeling like your head's getting a bit hot and you can kind of feel that pulsing. That's not a good thing. So that's the first thing. Secondly, at nighttime, if you need your phone for an alarm or whatever it might be, switch it on to airplane mode, switch it on to flight mode so it's not sending and receiving. And then that way, it's there to serve a purpose, and put it away. Don't have it next to your bed right there. You want it to be, a few meters away anyway, or in the next room or in the doorway. So you have to stand up, get up out of bed and go turn it off. So that's one little tip that I can share for you. The next thing is around Bluetooth. Now, Bluetooth, again, mega helpful, so amazing, great technology. But here's the thing. I'm seeing the incidents right now of the AirPods that people are getting, everyone's wearing them. And again, it's so handy because your phone can be one place. You can go to the gym and work out. There's not cords you're dealing with, or you can be out for a run and, you don't get tangled up. It's amazing. However, I want you to think about, if you have those pods on in your ears, your brain or your head is like the receiver in between. So there's there's different waves, sound waves and things coming from your phone, wherever that might be, and then going from one ear to the other, and your brain is that receiver in between. And again, it's great technology, but these things are untested. These things do not have, they have not been around long enough to be tested on a person to see the long-term implications of that. And for me, they never felt right. And so it's something that we just don't have in our home. Are cords a bit annoying? Yeah, they are, but that's what we're doing. The same with my keyboard. I actually have, my keyboard is wired. There's a cord from it to my computer. Does it look as good? No. Do the wireless Bluetooth ones look amazing? Yeah, absolutely they do. But when it comes to what I was being exposed to, I had the building biologist come and do a test here at my desk space. And the measurements that were coming up on her equipment was between 26 and 29,000. And the healthy range that she was wanting to see was more like around 4,000 to 5,000 at that point. And I was like, okay, this is not good. We got the modem right out of there. We rewired the house. Everything is now as a network cable. We're not using any Bluetooth. The only thing that sometimes happens is we'll use Bluetooth with a speaker to play a song, but the phone, ideally, we're connecting it via a cord, so there's no Bluetooth there. And then when it comes to my headphones, I'm always using a cord. I love listening to podcasts. You're listening to one right now. And so when I go from my walk in the morning and I'm listening to a podcast, I'll download it beforehand. Or if you use Audible, or if you use Spotify, you can download the playlist and then switch it on to airplane mode so that you're not sending and receiving, and then you go for your walk. So then that way it's not on your body sending and receiving. And again, we just don't know the implications of that. The other thing that was really interesting, so our kids don't play video games a lot, but they have a PlayStation, and the Bluetooth handheld remote control, they are holding that right around that groin area, right, when they're playing. The readings of that when we had Kelly out testing everything was over that 25,000 mark as well. When we plugged it in with a USB cord to the actual device, it dropped down to around that 10,000. So it's just being aware of things that you're doing, guys, and what you can do to change that, to make modifications in your home, whether you're renting, whether you own your home and you want to make the investment to get an electrician out and wire everything. For us, it just became a no-brainer. I have lost loved ones to brain tumors and seen people with cancer. And one of the things that I had observed is the regular use of a Bluetooth device on the ear, where you can walk around and do your phone calls, and it doesn't feel right. And I think it's just important that you start to do your own research. But when you look at dirty electricity and these other things that come into play, we just haven't seen the long-term health effects come out of any of these things, of an iPhone, of Bluetooth headphones, of the pods, all of these things that we have at our fingertips, which are amazing. I know they make life easier, but you want to think, am I noticing a change, in the way I'm feeling? Do I feel a bit headachy after I get off a phone call? What can I do differently in my home to start to reduce our exposure? The other thing we learned was even just turning your bed light, say you might have a bedside table with a reading light next to it. What we do now when we go to sleep is we turn the switch off at the wall. So it's not just, turning the light off, the lamp on and off, it's actually turning it off at the wall, so we're not being exposed unnecessarily as well. I was chatting with a friend of ours a little while back, and they were living in an apartment complex, and they'd moved in and all of a sudden started to experience headaches consistently. and weren't quite sure where it was coming from. And so they had the thought, well, I'm going to ask the neighbor, hey, I'm just wondering, my bedroom adjoins this wall. What's on the other side of this wall? And on the other side of this wall was a huge, big, I think was running 3 or 4 computers, this huge, big tech setup that they were constantly being exposed to through a wall that wasn't very thick. And so in the end, they couldn't ask that person to change the way they were living. So they ended up having to move. So these things, it might seem a bit like, it's no big deal, but these things can really start to build health challenges over time. And it's not just a one-off exposure. It's about that regular exposure that our body can get to. The other thing that we've done, our kids have iPads, we are homeschooling them now. So, they do use devices at times to be able to learn. We've gone and purchased a Ethernet point to US or to phone or iPad, a cord, so that they don't have to be on Wi-Fi to be accessing the internet on their devices. And ideally, whatever they're doing, it's already downloaded as well. So there's lots of things that you can do to reduce your exposure. And that's going to be the biggest thing, to start reducing your exposure. Like if you own a laptop, don't ever be on it, working on it with it plugged into power. I remember distinctly one day my husband Anthony was working on his laptop. It was plugged in, and I just happened to walk by him and pop my hand on his shoulder, and I fully just felt this electrical current surging through my body. I was like, oh my gosh, what was that? And I did it again. I was like, you need to unplug it. The moment we unplugged his laptop, it wasn't happening anymore. So charge your devices and then use them when they're not on charge. Think about how you can start to download things and then listen to, whether it's music, podcasts, Audible, whatever it is, on airplane mode, so that you're not exposing yourself regularly. The other thing, and then just how you can start to turn things off at night so that you or your children aren't being exposed to things on a regular basis. It all adds up, guys. And when it comes to our health and vitality, I really believe staying wired for your health is really important. Yes, technology is there. It is our friend in a lot of ways, but it's important that we're aware of these other, the dark side of it that can come along that we may or may not understand just yet. So in a future podcast, we're going to have these amazing ladies jump on and just share more of their insight. And I think you'll be blown away. It certainly has opened my eyes to so much more, and looking at, what I have personal control over every single day within my home environment or within my daily habits that can really give my body the best chance to be grounded and earthed and not, bombarded with this exposure that for so many people that aren't even necessarily aware of it. So I really hope that's been helpful for you. I am so passionate about this right now. I'm going to definitely be talking more on it because, there's other topics I'm sure we'll talk about, but you think about having an iPhone watch or, things like that, where you're constantly sending and receiving something on your body all the time. Yeah, cool. It can measure your heart rate and it can give you daily, stats around your steps and things like that. But having a receiver on your body 24/7, I'm not sure if that's a great thing. So this podcast is designed to get you thinking, to just prompt you to maybe have a look at some of the habits that you've got happening at the moment. And maybe you'll make some changes, maybe you won't. That's totally fine. But I'm really excited to be, upgrading things for our family and wanted to pass on that message as well. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that it's got you thinking a little bit about what your home setup is like, what your work setup is like. If you're using those pod thingies in your ears all the time, or your kids are on Bluetooth devices, definitely something to start to reassess and just see what your constant exposure is. I have popped a blog on my website, kategolay.com, where I share some of the things that we've done in our home to be able to really make those upgrades and get wired for health. So if you want to learn more, you can head across to there. And we'll definitely be getting some of our building biologists on to have future interviews to really dive deep into these topics, because I think this topic is not going anywhere anytime fast, and it's something that we all need to be aware of just so that we can live our best and healthiest life. So thanks for jumping on today. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, we look forward to speaking with you on a future podcast.